Good evening and welcome to Footy Furnace. What a ladder it is, what a season it's becoming. Very exciting. 5 premierships between the two men next to me, James Hird and Jimmy Bartel. Welcome to you, Hirdy.
Great to be here, Tom. Can't wait.
Good energy in the studio tonight, Jimmy. Welcome to you.
It's getting tasty towards the back end. Who wants those final spots? They're up for grabs.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get to that in a few moments' time. But these are the Sunday results. And what a great round of footy it was, really. 5 games decided by under 10 points. We saw West Coast take it up to Adelaide. The Crows too good in the end. The Western Bulldogs just got it done against Melbourne at the MCG. And the Giants far too good for North Melbourne over there in Canberra. And we'll talk about Canberra a little bit later on, Hirdy. Just a little tease there. But the ladder is quite incredible at the moment. Probably a byproduct of the fact it's been the top 9 and the bottom 9 really since round 6, Hirdy, is that the top 9 is so even. What's your hot take from what you see?
Just what's happened to Collingwood and Brisbane over the last month. I mean, they're really, I think a month ago, they were the top 2 and looked like they were entrenched in the top 2. But right now, one of them will probably miss out on top 4 and be from 5th to 8th, and that's it's a big drop.
And you'll see an asterisk there. We are giving Gold Coast the win. We apologise to Essendon.
Hang on.
The game up around 24.
You can't just give someone a win.
Well, we just wanted to even it up. We probably can with Essendon.
You didn't tell me about that.
There mightn't be any players left. Hopefully you've still got your boots.
So Gold Coast is actually 6th at the moment. We're giving them the win. That's how it looks, assuming they beat the Bombers in the Wednesday after round 24. Jimmy, what's your hot take?
Well, the fascinating thing for me when you look at that ladder, it's where they were actually all for the, with matchups going into the final series. And if you're the AFL too, you'd be looking at, if it was to finish like that, Adelaide, that's an away final. Of course, they'll take on Collingwood 4th. If it's finished like that, you got Geelong. Where does that final get played, which would be a real big question.
Surely that's Geelong v Gold Coast at GMHBA.
Well, it all depends because Freo would get the final, being 5th versus 8th, and then Brisbane would get the home final. So it'd be so fascinating to see what the AFL does with the Cats' first final, if it finished like that.
Yeah, quite incredible stuff. We'll get to the Pies and the other clubs in a few moments' time. But the heat map is jam-packed as always. It's red hot. There's so much on the agenda tonight. So Collingwood, as I said, the Brisbane Lions, the Dogs. Luke Beveridge said it's one of the best wins he's been involved in tonight, so we'll get him in his media conference after the game. The Freo Dockers, again, coming from the clouds. Jimmy, they've done it a few times in recent weeks. And also Essendon Football Club against Geelong. Weirdly sort of being celebrated after a 44-point loss at GMHBA. But let's get into the hottest topic of the weekend, and that is Collingwood. Even though they did play on Thursday night, the cliff has come quickly for the Pies. They were the oldest team that's ever played by 357 games in terms of experience against the Hawks. They've lost 4 of their last 5, Jimmy. And the question is, has the cliff come for Collingwood? And if it has, how can they arrest this slide?
No, I don't think the cliff has come just yet. I know a lot of people want to be the first to say that or jump in. But the whole point of having all that experience means you keep a cool head in a crisis. And it's not quite a crisis yet for the Pies. They're still challenging for a top 4 spot. I know they were 10 points clear on the top of the ladder and they've fallen back to the pack. But that's the whole point of why you keep all the experience. You actually keep the ships really steady. You don't get too high. You don't get too low. They work through it. I think the thing for them, which we'll probably dig into very shortly, is it structure? Is it a bit of who's playing where in the structure? Or is it players who are actually not in the side? Could you bring them in?
So you're keeping the faith, Jimmy?
100%. There's too much talent and too much experience, which often is used as a negative, but I'm using it as a positive at Collingwood for them not to right the ship.
I found the back end of my career is very hard to play a 22-week season plus finals. What about yourself? I mean, it's just a gruelling season with older players. Do you think that some of those players need a rest? I mean, they can't have a rest now, but just coming to the end, is the season too long?
I felt like they've tried to manage them over the last 4 to 5 weeks. That's why we've seen Scott Pendlebury as the sub, some guys in different positions. I think they've managed it pretty well. They've spoken really highly of their strength and conditioning and the way they've done it. So the fact that they've won a premiership, highly contended again, they're pushing up. I know they missed the finals last year. I think you've got to give them enough credit over the last 4 to 5 years.
But they were outspread. They were outrun.
Yes.
They were definitely outrun on the weekend. I mean, the Hawthorn midfield just outspread them. Looked like they were a youthful team compared to a senior team. And you just see the way they ran and spread. And, you see Tom Mitchell, who's a fantastic player on the inside, but the spread against. And I just thought that really the strength of Collingwood going into the game was going to be their midfield. But the Hawthorn midfield just dominated, particularly with their run and spread.
And you look at all these highlights and edits. And Hirdy, you touched on this and we spoke about it last week. week, and again, we'll harp on it. If you were to draw a line down the middle of these contests when they start, so when the game is stationary, if you can get the ball with any momentum going your way, which look at all these ones at Hawthorn, a lot of them aren't that pretty. They come back and fight for the footy, but then they turn the momentum back the other way. You can get some really good looks because we know the way Collingwood's defence likes to be. They like to be really proactive. They like to be proactive around the ball. And so then you can get some good opportunities.
Jimmy, at what point, I know you're not one for outlandish comments, but at what time do you accept that the Pies look second rate? And they have done for the last 5 weeks.
I wouldn't say all of those games they look second rate.
And against good teams, I understand that as well.
I think Thursday night was a really bad night for Collingwood, and we all served them up. I remember in 2008, while we were going really well, Hawthorn beat us in the grand final, but we were still going well. I think we peeled off 10 or 11 wins. Collingwood beat us by 98 points one night. You can have some really, really bad nights.
And the difference here is, of course, the ladder is so tight. You know, after round 17, they were 10 games clear on top. If they lose their next 2, they could still mathematically miss finals. Yeah. And their midfield mix is something you want to look at, Hirdy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Pendlebury, Long and Mitchell in their midfield all at one time. Not that they're in the centre square all at one time. Makes them look a little bit slow to me. I mean, you definitely need the Bobby Hill, DeGoey coming in, but just those three at one time in the midfield. They can play in the same team, but coming through the midfield hurts them. And I think that the loss of Bobby Hill, just some speed up in the midfield. Speed hides a lot of things. I mean, speed hides a lot of things. And the way that, I said, the Hawthorn midfield spread against Collingwood with Mitchell, Pendlebury and Long, as good a players as they have been, just tips them too far to the slow side.
Yeah, and McCreery as well on the forward line, who does all that grunt work. And for me, Tom, you could maybe ask, did McRae get out coach? And we're highlighting Collingwood, but I actually saw a massive positive from Sam Mitchell. I thought the way that they set up their rucks and their tools, and I want to highlight Big Lloyd Meek. Hopefully I said his first name correctly. They're big. Just the way he actually led up to the football. And the amount of times you want to sort of bypass a ruckman, but it was the opposite. And the sides are going to try and do this to Darcy Cameron. And it's actually a reflection of the impact Darcy Cameron has as a ruck. He comes back and sits behind the ball like almost a centre-half back, you know, just reads the play. But they tried to go through Meek and at different times Chol. And there, Darcy Cameron, he's just watching the play. So Meek goes and makes him accountable, took some good grabs, 3 goals as well. They tried to use him coming through the corridor, and it actually takes a strength away from Collingwood. And they wanted Cameron back there to cover their holes in defence. And not only was Meek marking the ball against Cameron in that defence, but sucking him out as well. That one on the lead where you suck him out, which gives a one-on-one in the forward 50 for the Hawks. It was great coaching. And just finally, if Collingwood can just start, and Craig McRae can just start by getting really tight as far as conversations with Darcy Moore. So not only is Darcy getting exposed by the system because they've had injuries, Jeremy Howarth's a massive out, and I know others in that back group. They brought Frampton back in, they've tried others. But if they get him back to full confidence, and then that's the captain as well, that like the start on Thursday night, he didn't take the ball, he knocked it down, he's still going to double fist. Just get your captain full of air. For the last 6 weeks, he's so important. He can do that, Jimmy. Remember the game against Sam Darcy earlier in the year where he was getting beaten in the first half, went back to playing man-on-man and Sam Darcy, and actually beat Sam Darcy in the second half of the Collingwood Western Bulldogs game. He can do it. I just think he's got to be reminded of playing man-on-man or closer to your man than trying to be a drop-off defender. So if they win one of those games, they might, well, probably likely to finish top 4. If they lose both, they're a chance to miss out completely. That's how exciting this season. Can they win it from outside top 4, Jimmy? I think a side can win it from outside. Can they win it from outside? Well, if they're outside the top 4, they are a side that can win it. But you're saying they probably need a rest for some of their older guys. So the week off. No, I didn't say that at all. I think you made the suggestion that... no, maybe that was Hirdy, actually. Yeah, no, I think that... I know what I was saying is, as you get older, going through a whole season finals is difficult. Yeah. So I think we're seeing that with the Collingwood team at the moment. Let's go to the Brisbane Lions, who have a bizarre, poor record at the Gabba this year. This game was... Well, it looked like a thriller on the score sheet yesterday, but really they kicked 3 goals in the last minute. The margin in the end was just 2 points. And what I really like here, Hirdy, is you've analysed exactly what the Sydney Swans did to get under the skin of the Brisbane Lions and, in the end, get the points against them. A big result for the Swans, even though they can't play finals. It was fantastic. The grand final last year, everyone's talking about the uncontested marks that Brisbane were taking and really kicked their way through Sydney and made them look second rate. Against Collingwood, Brisbane were able to do that. They were able to kick their way through the Collingwood team. And you see examples here of taking the 45, taking the short,
moving in and out of the space and creating space, but taking the ball off the line and making the Collingwood players defend and they kick goals. And they looked at an elite team 7 days before what happened on the weekend. It was fantastic by Brisbane. Just see Lachie Neale here, lowering his eyes off the line, making Collingwood defend and forming holes they can play in and space to. Elite kicking by Brisbane last weekend. Come to this weekend against the Sydney Swans and a totally different story, and Sydney should really be commended for the way they defended and filled up the ground, because once Brisbane get it over that last kick in the forward 50, very hard to stop. We see here Brisbane against Sydney Swans. Watch the Swans cutting off all these short exits so that the Brisbane have to go longer to a more one-on-one. Sydney are able to cut off the ball. We just look here at the way Sydney are protecting this space. So we just pause it here. There's no space here for Brisbane just to give that short kick. You only need 1 or 2 metres at the elite level, and Brisbane weren't able to do it. And that, to me, Brisbane do not want to go long down the line. They almost cut out that long down the line part of their game. If you can get them to go long down the line, you've almost had a win. And all credit to Sydney and their coaches, because the grand final last year, that's how they beat them. They learnt from that and really stifled Brisbane's ball movement. It's
that really high press, and I think we've made mention that what sides do to Hawthorn because of the type of tools. This is before the Hawks were playing 4 tools, of course, but you take the tempo and speed out of the game. And as you touched on at the very end there, the long down the line is actually a good result, because Logan Morris, if you have him in as many contests, he doesn't have the energy or as much energy. Eric Hipwood as well. But then who else? Their ruckman doesn't really get down the line and mark the footy as well as others.
So can Justin Longmuir and Sam Mitchell look at what the Sydney Swans did and replicate it? That's the challenge ahead of them.
Absolutely. The Brisbane chaotic nature, the way they move the ball, the wingers swap wings, the wingers come corridor, enables them to kick off the line and find space and really do that. If you want to beat Brisbane, you've got to cut out those uncontested marks. It goes a long way to doing it.
And the only way, sorry, Tom, the last bit on that is, of course, Freo this week, you can't have too many defenders sit too far back, because then you actually create the gap in the middle. So it's everybody high press. So it's nearly everyone within 40 to 50 metres of the kicker, because if you have them all press up and then you have a gap at the 30 metres, it can get really bad really quick.
If you start to fold back as a defence against Brisbane, they'll find the holes and they'll cut their way.
Fantastic analysis, and certainly one we'll look out for over the next fortnight when the Brisbane Lions take on the Fremantle Football Club and also Hawthorn. Let's move to the MCG today. Jimmy, take us through the Lexus of Blackburn key moments for this one. The Western Bulldogs have a collection of what are essentially elimination finals. Yep. They had to win to keep their finals hopes alive, and they did, but there would have been some nervous moments.
Yeah, well put, Tom, and you added to the fact that they've got a chubby percentage as well. That's really heavy, which might help them get into the finals. But it was really about the last quarter, and we thought, the old dead cat bounce from a coach being sacked, and it certainly worked for the Dees. They were up for the fight. Every time we thought the Bulldogs were going to kick a couple and get that little lead, they kept fighting back into it. But the last quarter was as exciting footy as you get. Ed Richards was magnificent, 2 goals in the last quarter. Petty taking the lead back for the Dees. Richards again, Garcia as well. Then Harvey Langford with a fantastic snap. Blake Howes, of all people, going forward and
first ever goal.
It was incredible. And then Sam Darcy, what a beast he is, contested mark, and then finding Riley West. And this was a pretty classy finish. We know Riley West is a proper footballer, as in he knows the craft. He's made himself into a really good footballer. Norton is having some sort of season. He just can't stop kicking goals. This is strange when it happened. If you go back and have a look at that, I think the Melbourne player there ran into the goalpost.
Yeah, weird.
So it was so strange. And the Petty knock-on was fantastic. And then look at this, Darcy, big moment. You're supposed to have a flaw in your game when you're that big, but he doesn't. And that was just... You could see there was a whole lot of tension released from the Bulldogs there. Bont was massive, 33. Richards, 31 and a goal. As I mentioned, Norton, 5 goals. And one little stat, Bailey Fritsch, 14 disposals, but he had 11 score involvements though.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Amazing.
He's been Melbourne's leading goal kicker the last 5 years, Bailey Fritsch, and he proved his value today, even though they had a loss. Luke Beveridge, after the game, was full of praise for his team.
Look, it's one of... We've had some monumental wins over the course of my time with the club, and this is one of the best. It really is.
All right, let's make a case for the Dogs and against the Dogs. Jimmy, you've got for the Dogs here. They're 9th in the ladder. They're a game outside the 8. 2 massive matches to come against West Coast and then Fremantle at Marvel Stadium on the last Sunday of the season. Tell us why, if they make it, they can go deep.
Well, do you like all my green numbers there that say first? Yeah, they're pretty handy numbers to have, and it points to the fact that the talent they've got on their list. Any team that's got Norton nearly up to 60 goals, Darcy, Bont, Richards, Bailey, Dale, Libba, English, all those names, you can create some pretty good attacking play. Points for inside forward 50 clearance. It means that they can properly attack and put the fear into any side. Midfield depth, and they can launch. So I think Hirdy's going to give me the case.
Yeah, give us the case.
You got the red ones?
Look, it's tough. It's about whether they can win the flag, not about whether they can make the finals.
Okay.
And I think finishing 8th and then having to go to Optus Oval to play Freo in the first final makes it tough. But they're too easy to score against. Points against 8th, opposition scores from inside 50, 11th, and opposition scores from defensive half 10. They're just too easy to score against. And when they're midfield, the ball goes the other way. The midfield doesn't control the ball. Teams have their way with them. And I think that's why I still believe in the Bulldogs, but I just think at certain times they get scored against too easily, which keeps other teams in the game.
All right, 2 rounds to go, and then if they were to play a final or 2, would you double down on all my nice green numbers, or would you try and fix your numbers?
It's too late. It's too late to fix those numbers. I think you want to get some structure behind the ball in a better way, but when you've got the quality of midfield you've got, I think you just got to go for it. You might play a defensive mid, you might have more balance around the midfield, but...
Try and kick 150?
Well, not in the final. I reckon if you get to 100, you'll go pretty well in the finals.
That game against the Dockers loomed so large in round 24, as I said, the last Sunday of the season. Aaron Norton, 55 goals, the most by Western Bulldogs play since Barry Hall in 2010. So I was going to say he's having a sneaky good season. We all appreciate it now, but his back half of the year has been fantastic.
Can we just go back on to Luke Beveridge's? That's the best win they've had in a long time, that comment. You can see why. I mean, the season on the line, like as a coach, the relief that must be going through you. They were 6 points off their season being done this afternoon, so I can understand why he said that.
It's good for the season that they won today, absolutely.
It's good for all of us. We can talk about the finals.
Let's talk about Melbourne, and that leads us into an early edition, a very important edition of the Word of Herd.
Yes, thanks, Tom. Simon Goodwin was sacked on Tuesday, and I was interested to hear the way that everyone who's come out to the media spoke about process and system and backing the board. Yes, they said Goody was a good coach, they liked him, but there wasn't too much dissent against the board decision by the players or even the president. Just listen to what the Melbourne players and the Melbourne president said in the reference to the board and their role in all of this.
I'm a lover of the Melbourne Football Club, and in the end, I'm going to support most decisions that they make, and this is another one that I'm going to get behind.
You know, the board's decision is to put the club's best interests at the front of mind, and we're going to get behind Chappie in the last few games, and see where we can go. It's
never easy when there's change. We don't shy away from that as a board. You have succession in place, but that's fine. We're a board to direct and govern the place.
So to me, that smacks of a corporate briefing that all the players had. Make sure you back the board in their decision, and that's fair enough. The club has to have a unified front, but it did seem very same.
Yeah, not all of them did. Ed Langdon actually went the other way when he spoke late last week. But what's the alternative? Because they clearly still love... I've never seen a coach, and I said this last week, get sacked with so much support from the players. Like, the players still loved him. So this came from above, not from below.
I don't think there is... What fascinated me by that was they all, except for Ed Langdon, they were all about the board made the decision, we respect the decision, we love Simon. And they have been criticised as a club for leaking out to you or whoever it did leak out to eventually. There's still some debate over that. But there has been some sort of criticism of that. But it just smacked of a club that's sort of all got in one direction and they want to go forward. Yeah.
What did you make of, just very quickly, Jimmy, what did you make of the way Melbourne handled the sacking of Simon Goodwin, the only living premiership coach, 4 years after he won the flag?
Oh, I just made of Simon Goodwin was all class in the press conference. I think it'd be one of the most difficult things. You've just been sacked from your job, and then 24 hours later, you've got to front up and talk in front of one of their banners going behind you. I think he set himself up really well. And it's always those moments, in those tough moments, how you handle yourself can lead to your next step and next step in footy life. And I can imagine Simon Goodwin would be chased pretty hard by a number of clubs for some sort of role. Yeah,
I agree. It was very classy by Simon, but also the fact sometimes he still referred to as we, like we're going to do this. That smacked of someone who really did love that club, and it'd be very difficult for him to leave.
And looking ahead, this is Nathan Buckley's position to lose now. Absolutely. Like he would like this gig initially. They like him. It's just a question of how this process plays out. So tomorrow there's a board meeting where the Melbourne board will meet and they'll discuss the committee to select the next coach. That will be chaired by Brad Green. Paul Guerra will be involved in that, as well as Alan Richardson, among others. Then on Wednesday they'll announce that committee, and then I'd imagine they'd have someone appointed. I think it's likely looking like Nathan Buckley before prelim final week. So that's how quickly this is going to move. All right, up next, Freo's get out of jail card. Again, it worked at Adelaide Oval last night, and lots more. Alex Pearce is the hottest hand of the round thanks to Lexus of Blackburn. He won the game for his Dockers last night. He drifted forward, Hirdy. Tell us how it happened.
I don't think he exactly drifted forward. I think in coaching, if you're a goal behind or you're a bit behind with a couple of minutes to go, you actually send a defender down, in front defender down there to protect the game. So Rosie, I think, has gone down. Pearce has gone with him and taken the mark. So we just watch it here. There's Pearce and Rosie there. And you just watch, Pearce comes down to even up the numbers and make sure that they don't have a loose behind the play. There's Pearce and Rosie, and what a mark it was.
So he goes down there to defend rather than attack, you reckon?
Well, he goes down there to make sure they haven't got a spare number.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, make sure they keep... Because if you've got a spare behind the ball, you can actually release someone to take the mark. And that's something teams would practice. Fremantle would practice that time after time for scenarios. 2 minutes to go, a minute to go, a goal down. 2 minutes to go, a minute to go, a goal up. What you do with you roll your winger down, and one of the tactics is if they've got a spare, you go and make sure that spare is manned up.
Surely you don't want, if you're Port Adelaide, you don't want Connor Rosie manning up on Alex Pearce in that moment either, Jimmy.
No, it's not the match-up, but you also want to stop him running and jumping at the footy when the only play was to kick it long and deep. We saw that coming in. But for me, they'd have an incredible amount of belief over there in the West. You two gentlemen know I'm a big believer in Freo. That's why I get frustrated at times with the way they play. But you build belief by constantly doing things really well, and what they've been doing really well is opening up the sails, pulling up the anchor and absolutely charging on home, and it's off the back of some of their stars. Of course, the two-ruck combination has been huge in last quarters. I think we've come in here, they've played a lot of Sunday games where we come in here and go, look at how good Freo finished this last quarter after being down. So you get a massive amount of belief out of it, and they dial up the pressure. So they believe in the fact that they're fit. They've got the rotations. Different players can bob up at different times, and you can kick the long to the contest. I know Pearce took that mark, but when you've got the big kahuna down there, Tracy, and the prancing pony as well in Voss, they're pretty strong targets. And then Sarong and Brayshaw through the middle as well. But they're really impressive numbers. That Justin Longmuir and the captains and the leaders of the group, and I know this used to happen at Geelong. It is always. It mightn't be until the last minute of the last quarter. You just got to keep coming, because you might absolutely eventually break them. It
actually reminds me a bit of Collingwood in their premiership year, how they just weren't the best team across 3 quarters, but continued to get the job done in the last quarter. Patrick Voss is a player who we talk about a lot these days, Hirdy, and rightly so. He just continues to impress.
He is delisted by Essendon at the end of 2023. He got an SSP spot, started 24, and his last quarter against Port here was fantastic. 2 goals, a number of important, a couple of entries, a number of important possessions, and almost a third goal. This guy's really stood up. 31 goals in the season. This is a mark that wasn't paid. Want to let the umpire know that. Watch this. This is a bit of arrogance that we like in the game when he. Come on, look, I marked it. It's good.
Is that
good
not dissent?
No, it's a bit of theatre, and this is a really, really good goal. That's a pressure goal. A lot of guys would hook that. He's able to kick it, but the play he's developed into is fantastic. 31 goals, second only to Treacy in the goal kicking for the Fremantle Dockers, but also gives them a sense of just energy and oomph. And he must be Fremantle players must love playing with him. Yeah,
they've been great in the second half of the year. So the Lions is still a tough trip, even though the Lions are sort of up and down. And as I keep saying, that Dogs game at Marvel Stadium is massive. So they can finish top 2. They can also finish outside the top 4, and they're going to have to be at their best. But in terms of teams that are playing good footy when it matters most, they're right up towards the very top. Can we move on now? The Lexus of Blackburn key moments, Jimmy, for the game. Adelaide versus... Who'd they play today?
West Coast.
Adelaide versus West Coast this evening. The margin was 9 points in the end, but, geez, the Eagles took it up to the Crows, didn't they? And it was an important win for the Crows because it means they're outright top on the ladder.
Yeah, well, halfway through the last quarter, we thought maybe the Eagles were a chance, but the class of Adelaide just got across Rankin, Philthorpe and Dawson with really considerable influences. But first goal here by Jordan Dawson, kicking a goal 52 metres off one step. It's pretty impressive, that leg that he's got. Job Shanahan kicking one of his 3 goals for the game. And the the Eagles really look like this was the best game they've had for the year. Ben Keys kicking one of Adelaide's 5 first-quarter goals with a terrific effort. Jamie Cripps putting West Coast in front for the first time last in the second quarter. But for me, Jimmy, it was the big three. Rankin, 22nd half possessions and a second half goal was fantastic. Riley Thilthorpe, 3 goals after half-time and the big hit that he copped in the game. And then Dawson as the captain with 26 disposals, 11 inside 50s and 14 tackles to drag his team over. And this was the winning goal, really, for me, by Rankin under pressure. Not the winning goal, the goal that put them in front. Some players just have class, don't they? And Isaac Rankin just shows a level of class that a lot of players would love they had.
They've got some players that you love to sit down and watch, even though we're not Adelaide Crows fans. You actually just really enjoy watching those individuals play, and they got them over the line. But super positive from the West Coast. McCarthy again, like he's just come mid-season. Like how easy is AFL football for him?
Well, where's he been?
He's been playing in the VFL. No one wanted to pick him up, of course. Shanahan again keeps showing plenty, and you could go through about another 6 or 7 of those younger guys from West Coast who I thought, hey, just bottle that, and that's what Minnie McQualton needs to do. Like, that is us. We just need to bottle that quarter after quarter, and they'll get closer and closer, and you just have to grab those things.
And Harley Reid's back in Perth. Interesting to see whether that leads to a signature or whether they just continue to sit on that. But either way, a decision is coming soon. Any concerns around Adelaide, Hirdy?
Just the way they moved the ball late. I just thought they really panicked a little bit with their forward entries. And you just see their forward entries here, just this long, straight, bombing the ball in when really all it took in the end was just taking the ball off the line and finding the free. Yes, there was pressure by West Coast, but for some reason, early in that last quarter, Adelaide failed to take the ball off the line. I know they have the 3 talls up there. They're big 3 talls that can take marks. But times like this, when late in the game, kicking the ball into your forward 50 like that, you've got to be able to handle the pressure. And this was different pressure from Adelaide. It wasn't like pressure of a finals type game. It was the pressure of what's happening inside your head when you can see, gee, there's top spot. We're 10 points behind West Coast with 10 minutes to go. That sort of pressure you need to handle and slow yourself down and look off the line and try and find a teammate rather than just kicking it straight down the line, Jimmy, to where the opposition have their numbers. Yeah, still work the angles, and I think there would have been a sense of, geez, we're playing 18th and they've got us, we're supposed to win it, and geez, we've got some big boys forward of the footy and they're more experienced. Let's just whack it in there, take the contest. But you're right, when you see when Adelaide shift it and still kick to advantage, those big boys don't get outmarked at all. And that's when you see what Isaac Rankin did with that goal that put them in front. You just go, class players, they just don't get any worse. And the players that can slow their brain down and use the best option and then kick goals like that are just worth gold. West Coast captain, or co-captain, but the only captain that was playing today, Liam Duggan. I expect this to be at least a week for a high bump on Riley Thilthorpe. Now, Thilthorpe played on. He went off for an HIA, came back on. You can see that he got him in the head and a bit at the shoulder as well, Jimmy. It was more sore in his shoulder. Post-game, it was interesting. He got interviewed by the on-ground crew there, and he said, oh, it was pretty sore. Yeah. But he came on and kicked 3 goals, so it'd be fascinating to see what the MRO rules there. Medium impact would be 1 week and high impact would be 2 weeks. Couldn't be high impact. No, the potential to cause serious... Yeah, but they didn't use potential to cause the other week. I thought that was finished. Jimmy, I'm with you. I think medium impact would work pretty well there. You're watching Footy Furnace. Let's move to GMHBA Stadium on Friday night, where Geelong were far too good for Essendon. The margin was 44 points. As I said at the top of the show, Hirdy, it's quite remarkable that in some ways we're applauding the Bombers having lost by 44 points. I know they've got lots of injuries, but I can't remember the last time that the Bombers were less relevant to the competition, a big club, than what they are now. What do you make of the way that they're setting themselves up for the future? Yeah, I think less relevant to the way the finals are panned out and less relevant to the end of the season, no doubt. I think for any Essendon supporter, the season end can't come quick enough. I mean, just the way, look, it was a commendable performance, but at no stage did anyone think they were going to win that game, which I think is sad for the supporters. And as I said, round 24 and a half, or whatever it's called, against the Gold Coast Suns can't come quickly enough. And then they start again and get some players back. I mean, they literally need to get players on the park, find out who can play and get rid of the injuries and start 2026 in a better fashion. Well, Zach Merritt's got a broken hand, so he won't play this week. So his 250th at the earliest will be against Carlton in a fortnight. The language coming out of the Bombers in recent times is, lifting the standards, and that goes for everything. And that can be training, getting yourself physically fit, being able to run the 2K. The next step for him this summer is actually attention to detail, Hirdy. So Redmond is a big culprit of this, where he just stands still and kicks off 0 steps or doesn't have any urgency. So the man on the mark comes here,
There's no edge. You can't do anything there. Geelong are great. You're just going to kick off, no steps, no impact. Archie Roberts, I think, is going to be a super player, and it's been a fantastic season for him so far. He's got a bad habit of carrying the football in the opposite hand. I know he handballs and holds the footy, but what it does is when he does this, it changes over. The opposition's reading the cues, but you're actually taking the ball away from the wrong hand. You've got a spare in defence. They clearly haven't worked on this, and Pryor keeps trying to make himself the spare. I don't know why he is the spare, because he hasn't been taught how to do it properly. So attention to detail is when you get back to training, the little things that just don't seem sexy, like handball and kicking, don't hold the ball in the opposite hand. Get off the mark. You watch actually Zach Merritt, their own teammate. He never just stands still. He moves through the football, and actually then you become a weapon. So your teammates start to move. If you stand dead still and just lean off the back foot trying to pick targets, and that wasn't just from that game. I could pick another 20 from that game, but week in, week out, it's the same culprits of it. I know they've got a lot to work on, but just attention to detail. So listen to your development coaches, because if you can execute the skills really well, you can build any game plan you want.
And Jaden Laverty, they're filthy on Pryor for just standing in the hole and not protecting him. Laverty's backed off, thinking he was going to cover it. That's just not good enough.
And they're chasing Matthew Innes, who is the West Coast strength and conditioning boss. He's been there for 2 years. They'd love to get him back to the Bombers as their strength and conditioning boss. Of course, that position is vacant. This Dylan Shiel incident was fascinating the other night, but before we show you it, Jimmy, Hirdy, we're in a group, a message group with all of our producers, and this was you, Jimmy, on June 5. Left field question. If you shove your opponent into a marking contest and he knocks out your teammate because he has no control, can or should you be cited? That was you, with a couple of spelling errors and grammatical issues.
Because you're punching it out while you're trying to watch the game.
That's right. On June the 5th. And this is what happened. So tell us about it, Jimmy.
No, it was just a question I raised because we're all worried about the dangers of pushing a player into the contest. So if that was Mark O'Connor there knocked out, we'd just go, well, hang on, we've seen the precedent this year. But then, obviously, there's always a lot of people in contests coming from different angles. So if you have that reckless behaviour where you just want your direct opponent to cannon into the pack, well, at some stage, we're likely to have one of your own teammates get collected off your opposition play if you're just going to shove them blindly into a contest.
So what's the rule?
So the rule is, we always thought, and Brad Scott actually said this after the game, you can't really be penalised if you injure your own teammate, but that's not the case. The MRO guidelines read, a player's conduct will be regarded as careless where his conduct is not intentional but constitutes a breach of the duty of care owed by the player, this is the most important point, to all other players. Those last 3 words are important. So it doesn't discriminate against just your teammates, it's to all other players, and that's what we've seen the other night. So this has been sent ungraded to the tribunal. The AFL's recommended 1 week. It's only the 2nd or 3rd time I think it's been sent ungraded to the tribunal in the last few years. The first was David McKay on Hunter Clark in 2021. I think he's every chance to get a week, Dylan Shiel. Are you comfortable with that?
If it's all players, not really, but if it's all players, that's the rule. Yeah, it's a week. And you've got to get rid of that pushing out when you're not really going for the ball. I mean, I think Dylan Shield's a very good player, but you just got to get rid of that part of the game.
So I'll tell you why this has been an issue for a while now. Because the umpires aren't paying pushing the backs. Jared Healy's been very hot on this. But this is an incident from earlier in the weekend. You see James Sicily blatantly push his Collingwood opponent, Will Hoskin-Elliott, there. And the umpire's right there, and he didn't pay a free kick. Now, it's not a big push, but Marbiol Chol's coming the other way, and it's very dangerous. So they have to pay those decisions.
But they did last week, I think, in the West Coast game.
Yes.
There was a
West Coast Melbourne,
they did pay them, so they have to clean it up and start. But you just got to pay that. That's a free kick every day of the week, and I know it hasn't been for a while, but that is a dead set push in the back. Pay the free kicks, and the instance like Shield won't happen.
The Cats have always tried to move magnets around. Mark Blitzhalves is the magnet that never stays still, and we've seen players start in different positions, whether it's Jeremy Cameron coming up the field, but because they've got 4 hard-running, small mid-forward types, of course, Sean Manor gets up the ground really high. We know Brad Close can work from half-back all the way to the forward line. The one that's jumped out in recent times for me is Myers coming through the midfield, and that means actually starting in centre bounces and being around stoppages and clearances. I'm not talking about when he comes up in general play and tries to work his way back, but using him through there and being that last kick inside forward 50, which we know is elite, is another weapon to the Cats midfield. So then they can have Atkins play that defensive role. We know Smith and Holmes are going to blast through big metres games, but now you've got a real crafty, creative player on the inside trying to work his way out. It's just another weapon that they've been able to find running into September.
It was fascinating to read during the week about his kicking style. He treats it like a golf shot, and he's got the 7-iron, the 9-iron, this. And that, to me, says someone who loves the art of kicking. I wish more players took that sort of time about the way they kick their football, because it is an art, and you've got to practice all these different types of kicks.
Game 150 for Gryan on the weekend. Jeremy Cameron went into the game. All the attention was on him. Kicked 4 goals, 5. So he's sitting on 79 with 2 home and away games to go against Sydney and Richmond, and then potentially as many as 4 finals. Does he get to 100 in finals, Jimmy?
Well, I'm the one who raised it, so I'm trying to...
Well, that's why I'm going to you.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, hopefully.
No, I think he does, because they'll play at least 2 finals, hopefully 3 for them, and that's 5 games, so that should be enough.
All right, Sydney and Richmond to come for Jeremy Cameron and the Cats, so all eyes on him. An important win for the Giants over North Melbourne in Canberra today. The margin was 54 points. They had to win, Jimmy, and they did. Take us through the Lexus of Blackburn key moments.
Yeah, they had to win and win well, Tom. And you remember, this is a battle of the old tenants as well, because North Melbourne used to head up to Canberra as a home ground and actually had a pretty good record. Winnie Abraham flying as high as the point post. Remember that mark of the year? Stringer was fantastic. Kicked it 3 goals as well. Toby Green had 23 and 3. Cadman just still lighting up the competition, as well as a young emerging forward with that big pack of emerging forwards in the game. He finished with 4, but he set up Callum Brown just there before, kicking 5 goals for the day. So we heard his cool little tune after it, which Chris Scott would hate. Toby Bedford's moved back into the forward line, more so than run with and tagging roles, and has been hitting the score. Toby back after his week, as I mentioned, suspension, kicked 3 goals, 3, and was dominant. The rosy cheek assassin, Finn Callahan, was magnificent again today, 31 and a goal. And Luke Parker, well, we never question Luke Parker not having a crack. He just knows one way. He had 29 and a goal. And Callum Brown finishing with a soccer, and Cadman getting another one at the end. So you're right, it was an important win. But it is at times where Giants go through lulls, and they had some lulls in that game, but just had too much class across the field.
It was a 10-day break after their big loss to the Dogs, and Adam Kingsley set them to perform better, and they did just that. Important games against Gold Coast and St Kilda to come. If they're good enough, they'll make it. If they're not, they might miss out and finish 9th. So this game in Canberra, Hirdy, we reported on 9 News tonight that their ACT Chief Minister, Andrew Barr, is now on the record saying he would like the 20th AFL team to be in Canberra. What do you say to that as a Canberra local?
Oh, it'd be amazing. I remember the days back in early days of the Canberra Cannons when Phil Smythe was smashing up in the basketball. That was the only national sport team we had. Then the Canberra Raiders came along, and now the Giants are obviously the team in Canberra. But look, that'd be amazing for Canberra football. It was always very strong, probably till the Canberra Raiders came along in rugby league and took over that type of the sport, took it over in rugby league. But the Giants have come back, and I think AFL's come back in the landscape. But it'd be great for the territory. So
the Giants are there till 2032. One-word answer, what would you call the Canberra AFL team?
Oh, that's too hard, Tom, on the spot. You can't call them the Cannons, the Cosmos, the Comets. The Comets already gone. It'd have to have a C, wouldn't it?
Yeah, OK, we'll move on from that. Let's go to Carlton versus Gold Coast at Marvel Stadium last night, where Carlton really challenged the Suns, didn't they? The margin was 19 points in the end. What did you make of the Michael Voss decision last week, Hirdy? Something we haven't heard from you on yet.
Yeah, I think it was a brave decision by Carlton to stick by their guns, stand by their man. I think everyone sees Michael as a fantastic leader, great football person, and I would imagine Graham Wright's going to put some different people around him and try and support him. And you don't go that long with a coach and not back them. I mean, there aren't that many amazing coaches out there, and I think Michael has a full respect of the football world, and what Carlton doing is backing him and going to put better support around him. So, Tom, the model points to it, and if you compare it to Melbourne moved on the senior coach. As you said, they've backed in Michael Voss, which means there's potential change with assistants and other people in the football department. You got any word on that?
Yeah, so this is happening this week, Jimmy. So by Friday, those assistants will know whether they're at the club next year or not. The highlighted ones are the contracted ones. These are all the assistants, of course, not including Michael Voss. So Hanson's contracted, Hamill's contracted, but it doesn't mean they can't be moved on if that's what Graham Wright wants. But if I was any one of the other guys there, I'd be a little bit nervous. And also Brad Lloyd as well, the footy boss, I think is genuinely under the pump to keep his position. And he might decide himself that he's had enough and to try something else.
This is a very difficult time for the football club and the football department in terms of the coaching. And Michael Voss have a lot of loyalty to those coaches. And I'd imagine if we think what's going to happen, that there's someone who's going to have to move, he's going to be tested into which ones should move, which ones shouldn't move. And it's going to put a lot of strain on relationships. So I wouldn't envy what Michael's going to have to go through and what that football department's going to have to go through to get to where they want to be in 6 to 8 weeks' time.
Yeah, speaking to people connected with that club, it's a brutal time for all those people. Yep. So it's a big few days ahead, but I think for many of them, they'd probably see the writing on the wall that significant change is coming.
You might see the writing on the wall, but your heart goes out to the coaches. We don't talk about assistant coaches and what happens to them, but, you know, you've got your families, and you may know 4 weeks that you're going from a job, a very steady job on a certain wage, to in the football landscape, there isn't a job, which is very difficult.
With you there completely, Hirdy.